Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Anda sedang menonton rakaman khas Agenda AWANI. Dan ini Agenda AWANI istimewa dan khas kerana ia dibawakan oleh Serba Dinamik. Serba Dinamik, nama yang mungkin terutamanya orang di Semenanjung tak begitu mengenali sebagai sebuah syarikat teknologi tenaga dan sebagainya. Tetapi kini setahun lebih sahaja selepas mereka disenaraikan di bursa, now they are already listed, and I'm very, very proud that a company that AWANI has been associated with has now gone past the valuation of 5 billion Malaysian ringgit. Congratulations to Dato' Abdul Karim, orang besar, Group Managing Director, Group CEO. Dato' Karim, I would like just to go straight to the point where before Serba Dinamik has been looked upon as an underdog. Now you're no longer the underdog because you're so huge and big. You yourself have been quoted at 1.16 billion worth after the amount of shareholding and everything else. But I want to look at that from a positive point of view. That shows that a company that has started as an SME went through, whether it's public or private initiatives, and now has made it as one of the world's leading company in what you do, which is looking at services, EPCC and all this stuff. But the one thing I want to take out from there is, now that you have reached where you have targeted before, surely the target forward will be higher than ever before. So what are your targets going to the future? Because once you are no longer the underdog, you are the heavyweight, sometimes the fight gets tougher, and the issue of sustainability grows up. The bigger you are, the harder you fall, is what people like to say. But in the age of sustainability, the bigger resources that you need to have will be a bane on being sustainable going forward. So how do you look at this as somebody who leads now a more than 5 billion Malaysian ringgit company?
Firstly, thank you very much, Cik Gamarun, for having me here. And I also, before proceeding to answer the questions that you asked, would like to take this opportunity to say that the success of where Serba Dinamik is today is a teamwork. It is not a personal kind of achievement, but it is a team achievement which contributed back to the board of directors and also to the management team, plus the entire staff that have worked over these years to achieve the result that has been shown. And then I also like to say that people like yourself, Cik Amarul, has helps us to bring some of the message and missions over to the investment community, and also to certain extents help us to extend our capabilities to our potential prospects. It can be in domestic, it can be in other country. So I think we are very thankful to everybody who has played this part. And going back to what you have mentioned, what are we looking at, or how do we want to see Serba Dinamik moving forward? I always goes back to the theme that normally Serba Dinamik would like to use from day one, from the inceptions of the company, which we say that think globally, act locally. So back in our mind, we have the intention that the market for Serba Dinamik is the global or is the world. But again, we should not forget the importance and the functions and the role where local people would play. So based on this kind of approach, I think we have been quite successful entering into different countries. We take care of the importance of the functions of the local. We bring them in our workforce, and we manage to position ourselves in those countries which we have mentioned in a lot of our discussion and exposure to the people, to the public, and also to the media. So the other point that I would like to touch on is we want that Serba Dinamik to be a multinational company of preferred choice. So what it means here is we need to put in a lot of efforts so that we are recognized as a multinational company, meaning that in terms of the workforce, it has to be multiracial. In terms of the geographical positioning, it has to be quite wide across the entire globe. And the service that we are offering should be able to be competing with all the top tier international companies. And we also put in preferred choice, meaning that we are expecting that we must maintain the quality, and the service that we provide has to meet the necessary standards that is practiced in the industry that we are working with.
Some people believe that in oil and gas especially, and we'll go to the other stuff that Serba Dinamik has, it's very tough when the higher you go. That's why they call it the big four, for example. But with the new world of openness and the world's getting smaller because of enlightened travel and stuff, you do not have to compete with the big tier one directly. They are emerging markets and developing markets, which maybe the experiences and the skills and the valuation of services by Serba Dinamik is more fit or apt to. Do you see that as a plus point for Serba Dinamik to go global? Because sometimes local companies from Malaysia always have this gap for them to cross over to go international. But because in Serba Dinamik history, you started out in a big way in the Middle East before you were even big in Malaysia, so maybe the advantage you have is knowing that niche market of maybe not the most expensive top tier, but the next best thing fitting the more of the developing markets rather than the developed markets.
I would like to say that it varies from the experience of different company. Like our company, what we started off is just as an SME, and I always repeat saying that the success of Serba Dinamik positioning itself domestic and also internationally is very much going back to the track records and the capability, what it can do to satisfy the requirements of the customer. In fact, in terms of our positioning, we implemented actually a reverse approach, because we have been going out and trying to market ourselves, telling the Malaysian people that we can do all these high-end kind of latest state-of-art technology requirements to carry out a major overhaul of gas turbine, steam turbine, and the likes. And it was not taken in the context of the positivity that we can do it. So what we were thinking is, if that is the case, then let's go outside of Malaysia. And true enough, when we started our first job over in Qatar, we have done in compliance to what the industry wants. The customer and client is very happy with what we have done. And from there, we come back to our own country and tell our folks that, yeah, we have done this, you can refer to this particular person in another country. And from there, I think it built up the level of confidence. So what I'm trying to say is, innovations is very important. There is no one-way solutions to any challenges or problems or goals and objectives that an individual or an entity like a company want to achieve.
Okay, I thought we go for the first break. Once we are back, when I look at the core, like O&M, operations and maintenance, engineering, procurement, construction and commissioning, EPCC, or your IT services, training, surely as you have more resources in terms of market capital, and with the light of the changing world, technology, the fourth industrial revolution, the foresight that you have to think not about just the needs of now, but 10, 20, 30 years from now. And once you start saying global, that means that while you are going to new markets, you are already envisioning where you are going to be. So is this three core enough? We've heard your forays into more services of healthcare, technology, and diversifying your approach. But my point is, even at the World Economic Forum, the first line of game changer in the fourth industrial revolution is data. And maybe it's an apt word to say here, because oil and gas has been a strong provider for Serba Dinamik. But they say the new oil is data. So let's talk about that after this short break. You are still watching a very special session of Agenda AWANI. This is about Serba Dinamik, and we need to know Serba Dinamik because Serba Dinamik has carried the flag, opened the path for SMEs of Malaysia to be successful at the global stage, and they have done it. You know, I keep hearing problems given to me by entrepreneurs, and I identify. One of it is, sometimes we cannot get the locals to trust us. Datuk Karim has just given us the answer. If they don't trust you to do the overhaul of the gas turbine, steam turbine here, go and do it in Qatar. And if you are accepted in Qatar, then the Malaysians will come back and get you. Yeah. But that's one. But that's water under the bridge for Serba Dinamik, because now with being listed, with market capitalization more than 5 billion Malaysian ringgit, and with footprints all over the world, slowly but surely, is it enough to have your three main core that you have with you when you listed? And how do you look at going forward 10 years, 20, 30 years from now, medium to long term? Because at the end of the day, any company that doesn't factor in the fourth industrial revolution disruptions will be disrupted, even in the oil and gas industry. So I would like to see your insight into it.
Okay. Firstly, I would say that if we look back to what we claim that we are good in, as what rightfully you have mentioned, the operation and maintenance capability, the EPCC capability. You did also mention the IT solutions capability related to Industry 4.0. Yeah, that is very true. And I would like to also share our view and our internal discussion and debate. When we talk about, let's say, the maintenance component of it, is a very wide scope of engineering scope inside there. For the first 15 years of the inceptions of our company, what we are doing is just a small portion of the entire maintenance scope. We are just a field service company who goes out to carry out the necessary maintenance, repair, overhaul in the field aspect. And during that time, the workshop repair and so on, we were not able to do it because we do not have the necessary fund and capital to invest in to buy all these latest state of art equipments and so on. So as years goes by, we slowly entered into all these workshop repair maintenance because there is it's a fact that not all equipments can be carried out maintenance in situ, which is on the site. And that was the second area which helps us to complete a little bit of what we can do. And after our listing exercise, with the funds that we have, we are saying that we need to complete further our capabilities as a maintenance entity, very specific on the rotating equipments, which is basically talking about the manufacturing of parts and components. A lot of equipments in our client locations are already obsolete. The OEMs has, maybe doesn't exist, but the machines is still running. So how is the client or the customer going to get the parts so that the equipments will still continue running? So that is where we came in with capabilities and service, what we term it as reverse engineering or re-engineering based on the component which we see, and there are equipments which can be used to re-engineer all these components. So that capabilities is what we can do at the moment, and it add further into our field service, our workshop capabilities, repair, and together with the parts supply. So more or less we have achieved that. And the next comes our customer which used to use our service is of the opinion that Serba Dinamik is just coming to suck my blood. Meaning to say that just want to do the repair and then gets the fees being paid and go off.
Reverse, yeah.
So they were of the opinion that we should be able to give mitigation plan or advice or other value-added kind of things so that all this recurrence of repair maintenance can be reduced down, so that it can cause a saving to them. Yeah. So that is where the Industry 4.0, to a certain extent, from certain scope, plays a very important role. Because how do you know that the health of the equipment is through the data, information that you gathered? Similarly, when we want to check what is the health condition of our body, we have to go through a few testing to collect the data. Because on that data, then we can know at which positions and conditions we are in. So the same things with equipment. So if we take an example like a production platform, let's say it is a gas production platform. The gas will comes in from the suction input, and then it goes out as the end product. What the asset owner wants is, if possible, the productions at the end output will be as much and as high as possible, and it has to meet the quality that is required. So to achieve that, it very much depends the gas entering, going, passing through all the different process vessels, equipments, and so on. So to ensure that the output is really at high quality, meeting the spec and also the quantity needed, you must analyze the health of all the equipments. So how are we going to analyze when there is so many data? So this is where big data comes in.
Correct.
And Industry 4.0 is talking about this kind of capability. Internet of Things, extraction of data, extraction of signals, sensors, and then from there it is put into the big cloud mechanism, and from there the big data analytics capability should comes in. So that is where artificial intelligence comes in from the perspective of numerical formulas, the process data, simulations, and so on. So I would say that Serba Dinamik is moving to acquire and to have all this capability in-house, so that we can help the customer, our client, to improve in terms of their efficiency and productivity.
Correct. I thought we go for the last break, but once we are back, you know, remember in the Industrial Revolution 3.0, the moment you have a server, maybe at first you just wanted it to be point of sale system and call center, but the moment you have the capacity of the servers and the chips and the thinking logic of the computer, you discover that you can do many other things. You can automate your HR and stuff. Digitization and digitalization give you the ability to scale horizontally and vertically. So the same thing you did when you look at rotating equipment, it can be for oil and gas, but it can also be for turbines in hydro, in green. So after the break, I want to ask you about your leadership and vision. The world needs green right now. We only have one Earth. All the data are pointing to that. So how do you look at the component you have in oil and gas, which many younger generation will look at it as the old and the past, and we want to minimize, if not abolish that, and we want to move to the new clean or green energy, as they call it, which you also have the technology to go to, plus with big data and AI now, that doesn't stop you from just looking at either oil and gas or renewable energy. You could practically go horizontal across many verticals. Let's talk about that right after this short break. You know, great things sometimes start small. The World Economic Forum in 1971 is just a sort of a management business meeting of a few Europeans, now becoming very, very big. And I would like to put the same analogy to Serba Dinamik, starting with rotating equipment, you know, using the hands, very hands-on and stuff, kind of knowledge and skills. Right now, servicing the best of the best in the world in terms of power generation and everything else. You can even reverse engineer stuff that other people had done, reverse that technology and solve the problems of today. But once you go into AI and big data analytics, there's no stopping you from doing any other things, because that's just how the fourth industrial revolution works. One, and secondly, big leaders have big responsibilities on their shoulders. More and more, even the younger generation of Malaysia are crying out for green leadership. Maybe they look at it now more at the private sector leaders. You know, if your market cap is that big and you have that kind of success, how do you give back to our flora and fauna, especially to the flora and fauna of Borneo and Sarawak and Sabah, where you come from, Dato'?
Firstly, I would say that I need to put a priority to my shareholders and also the potential investor. And based on that, our priority in terms of what our daily activities are is taking into consideration the issues of sustainability. We have made a commitment to our shareholders and investors saying that annually this is what we can achieve. We have a dividend policy which we have pledged that we should be able to comply and fulfill that kind of achievement. So sustainability is the issue. When we talk about sustainability, one of it is the geographical coverage of where we are. Because the bigger coverage we have, the more sales and revenue will comes in. And it's also part of the mitigation. Maybe some geographical region is not safe and undergoing some political turbulence and so on. So there is where other areas will come in to compensate those losses. So that is from the aspect of the geographical coverage. The second aspect is the relevance. Are you still relevant to the industry? Because technology is evolving very fast. And I surely believe that, like what you have mentioned about those Industry 3.0 compared to Industry 4.0, there's a big gap in terms of the difference and capability in the technology. So that is why we have been looking and moving as fast as how the technology is moving, so that we will still remain relevant. So in our urge of all these things, of course, we have the obligation to make sure that we do not destroy the world. So that is where this green technology and initiative comes in place. And if you look at what we are doing, for example, like the power generation industry, we've been exposing ourselves quite highly into the hydropower industry. Because hydropower industry, in terms of the exposure release of the carbon into the atmosphere, is very limited. So what we are saying is we are quite responsible so that we do not damage the environment. And then a lot of other things which we are doing is going along the same line, that we have the responsibility to make sure that in our urge to be successful as a business entrepreneur, we do not damage the environment that we are working in.
You know, as an editor, I receive emails every day from corporate, government and NGOs and stuff, but I have never seen many new things being announced every quarter like Serba Dinamik. Thank you so much, Dato', for giving us, the editors and journalists, many things to look at and think about and write about. Thank you so much. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Not just on the 5 billion, also on the 1.16. I want to read. It's always enriching to be with a company that started at one level and now reaching the heights that they can soar. But don't just look at Serba Dinamik from the market capitalization, look also at the know-how, expertise, and they are also having many initiatives to train young Malaysians to go into skilled areas like power generation, like green energy. So get in touch with Serba Dinamik or send it to us at all the social media platforms that we have, or download our mobile app, whether it's Android or Google or iOS. So see you in another episode very soon. Terima kasih kepada Serba Dinamik.